This week's question came from Stacey. She said, Hi, Dan. I listen to almost all of your podcasts. Yes. Love you, Stacey. And you talk a lot about management one, helping with cash flow. How big does a retailer need to be to get this service? And can you give me some more information on exactly what the service does? Well, I have to tell you, Rob, first off, ever since this launch of this segment in the podcast came up, I've been dying for this question to come. You know, I'm not really that hard sell guy. So Stacey, I love you.
Stacey for the win.
Stacey for the win, man. I've been hoping for this question. And yes, Stacey's right. We do talk a lot about the Management One, what I call the Management One Advantage, a fair bit on the podcast. They are one of our premier partners. Love that team to death. Love what they're doing for retail. And I believe, we talk about it a lot, Rob, because I believe so strongly in merchandise planning and the requirement for it to be one of the key tools in driving a retail business forward. Okay. So what is merchandise and retail planning? Ask any 10 retailers or probably any 10 retail experts what merchandise planning and what is merchandise planning, and you're probably going to get slightly different answers. We define merchandise planning as the systems define outcomes, the systematic approach to maximizing a retailer's profitability, cash flow, most important, and return on investment through accurate sales and inventory forecasting. And when put into action, merchandise planning increases our profitability by maximizing the sales potential and minimizing losses that come from two big things: stockouts, I didn't have enough, and markdowns. I bought too much and had to mark it down. And in order for a retailer to really do this, it's vital that we track, measure, and respond to customer votes. And votes, the purchases, the yes, the credit card, we measure that vote, Rob, by classification. Okay. Classifications are an assembly of products that sell on a similar curve. So we think about classifications like tops, denim, candles, bottoms, accessories, mirrors, prints and mirrors, tabletop, footwear may be broken down by sneakers. There's a million ways for us to look at a class structure, and a well-defined classification structure is the key to gaining the insights needed to take full advantage of your store's sales potential. The queen shops in your store by class, not by brand. And the sooner retailers give in to this proven fact and start building and responding to their businesses in this way, the sooner they'll achieve the financial results that they're longing for. And the other question, that Stacey asked was, how big does a retailer need to be?
Great question.
It is a good question. And certainly, as we talk about, not all software fits, not, all retailers, and certainly this may not be the case at all, or in this instance at all. But I'm going to say, how big does a retailer need to be? The truth is, it's not about size. Size does not matter. I think we've heard that before.
Not touching that one.
Size does not matter. But Rob, what matters the most is that we build a structure that supports and fosters growth in a business. And understanding a retailer's personal first and then their business vision allows us to take this critical component in and build from there as a starting point. Size really is irrelevant. I'll tell you, the smallest retailer I've ever started working with, was right around $200,000 in annual sales. Yeah. So a very small retailer. That same retailer today is now approaching 2.5 million with an M in annual sales. And that came from us first understanding the vision and the structure and the desire and saying, okay, how do we grow from here? What's our goal? Yeah. The same retailer that I'm talking about was told by another retail, I'm going to use the word consultant, even though I don't like it, another retail consultant come back and see me when you grow up. You know, how demoralizing.
Why would you want to be part of that story?
To a freaking retail. Well, now here we are, part of that story, where a retailer's grown more than 10x, you know, is an avid, and a very active retailer in lots of doors now, doing more things than they ever thought possible. But it came, one of the tools used in this growth was our Management One and Merchandise Intelligence Plan and where we were headed.
And really a conversation of not where they were, but where they wanted to go.
It doesn't matter where you are today or where you've come from. Rob, it drives me crazy to listen to the stories of yesteryear, man. It's dead, it's gone, it's over. Move forward. Let's look forward. I don't care how it compares to last year or the year before. I want to know how it compares to where I'm going. We set out on a trip, brother. We put a dot on the map and we say, that's where we're going, and we figure out how to get there. And in retail, it takes the same persistence. I put a dot on the map and I figure out how to get there. Yeah. And it's not always as simple as,
it's not a straight line.
Merchandise planning up.
It's not a straight line either.
It's not a straight line,
it's
man.
It's up
and down and sideways. Yeah. It's like there's 14 detours on this path to $100,000 in sales growth. It's crazy, but that's what it takes. And it takes a level of objectivity in the business. And what we bring in merchandise planning for a retailer, two things, most important things: objectivity. I didn't buy it. I don't have an emotional attachment to it. I can look at it and consider all of the facts objectively. And accountability. I'm here to help you grow the business. I'm going to hold you accountable to that growth, that vision that you shared with me. I bring objectivity and accountability inside that plan. And I say I, but everybody in the Management One family, that's their purpose, to bring a level of objectivity and accountability that fosters retail growth. Growth for us comes with the measure of cash. Not white paper profit. It comes by growing cash in hand, cash in bank. And the question that Stacey, I expected her to ask, that she didn't ask, Rob, really, is the third most common fear for a retailer when they get started with planning. It's cost. And I'm going to reiterate, cost should never be a fear. The fear in today's retail world comes from the absence of a plan to get you to that next level. That's where fear should be. Retailers can implement a solid, cash-driven merchandise plan for mere pennies on the item they buy. And I share this with a lot of retailers, Rob. Your planning costs were $1,000 this month. I just throw a number out there. But you bought 10,000 items. It was the pennies on that item that you bought that gave you the guidance to buy it, the confidence, the strategy, the action that needs to come from that. So how much does it cost is always a fear-based question, a fear that they can't afford it, when in reality, the fear comes in the absence of having a plan. You should expect a 3 to 5 time return on any expense that you have going out of your business as it relates to planning that growth. And there's not a vendor in your store that's giving you a 3 to 5 time return on your cash.
Right on.
Don't give a shit about your cash. We do. Merchandise planning only cares about cash.
Dan and cash will be your new best friend. Give him a call. Speaking of that, Dan, there's got to be other questions out there. What kind of questions do you think retailers have, and what topics can they reach out to you about? And
listen,
how do
there's
they
no
do it?
topic, Rob, is off limits. We've gotten questions about metrics, about payroll, about rent. We've talked about retail shrinkage. We've talked about key themes for going forward. We've talked about a couple of, on the podcast, 2 different sort of what I call pathways. One that's a bit inspirational. What should I be looking for? what should I pay attention to? And then the metric driven, this is how you measure success in your business. And any one of those questions is fair game. Choosing a P&OS system, we've had questions. I can go back. We've got about 6 questions sort of that are in the backlog of, getting on the podcast that we've already answered. If you have a question, it doesn't matter what it's about. If you're a retailer and you have a question that you don't know the answer to, or you think you don't know the answer or want a different opinion, send an email to dan@thewealthyretailer.com. I promise you'll get an immediate, a quick, a fast, personal response from me.
Yep.
And, if appropriate, and with your permission, we'll share it on the podcast. I mean, Stacey, I asked her right away when we talked about this. I, of course, called her. I sent her an email and said, love to book 15 minutes with you. Let's just chat. Much easier than the keyed response. I'm not a great typer. And so we did chat. And I asked her if I could share this on the podcast.
Nice.
Shout
out Stacey.
Yeah. She was good with it. She was cool with it. So
good stuff.